The beach trip changes everything. Not through grand declarations or dramatic confrontations, through the quiet moments between them that finally feel different. Taiki and Chinatsu standing close enough that the space between them hums with possibility. Glances that linger a second too long. Conversations that dance around what they're both too scared to say out loud. Volume 18 doesn't just tease progress. It delivers it in ways that make 50 chapters of slow burn tension finally combust into something real. This isn't another almost moment. This is the shift fans have been screaming for since Chinatsu moved into Taiki's house and they started orbiting each other like gravity was pulling them together, but fear kept them apart. The beach setting strips away their usual defenses. No practice schedules to hide behind. No convenient interruptions from family or teammates.
Just sun, sand, and the terrifying vulnerability of being alone with someone who might feel the same way you do, but you're too afraid to confirm. And then it happens. Not a full confession, but something close enough that the emotional weight cracks wide open. A moment where both of them stop pretending they're just friends living under the same roof, stop acting like every accidental touch doesn't send electricity through their entire bodies. The volume doesn't rush to resolution. It sits in that tension, lets both characters feel the enormity of what's building between them, and leaves fans suspended in the best kind of agony because we can see where this is going, but we're not there yet. Meanwhile, the supporting cast isn't just background noise. Kyo, Karen, Ayame, they're all processing their own feelings, creating a web of emotional complexity that makes every interaction charged with subtext. But that's just the start. Here's how it all unravels.
Blue Box has always been a slow burn romance disguised as a sports manga. Taiki's badminton journey matters, but it's never been the emotional core. That's always been his relationship with Chinatsu, the basketball star who moved into his house, turning his safe, predictable world into something charged with possibility and terror. The series has spent 50 plus chapters building their dynamic through tiny moments. Shared breakfasts, late night conversations, the way they've learned to read each other's moods without words. Volume 18's beach trip represents the first time they're outside their structured environment, away from routines that let them avoid confronting what's growing between them. The Nationals just finished. The team's exhausted, riding the emotional high of competition, and this beach trip is supposed to be celebration and relaxation. But putting Taiki and Chinatsu in swimsuits, in an environment that's inherently romantic, surrounded by friends who can see the tension even if the two of them pretend it doesn't exist, that's not relaxation. That's pressure cooker. Every interaction becomes loaded. Every moment alone together feels like standing on the edge of something that could change everything or ruin it entirely. The supporting cast dynamics add layers of complication. Kyo's been carrying unrequited feelings that everyone can see. Hina Chono's presence as a potential rival has created triangles that make every character hyper-aware of their own emotions. Karen and Ayame watching Taiki and Chinatsu dance around each other creates this external pressure where even if the main couple won't acknowledge what's happening, everyone around them is waiting for the inevitable. That observer effect matters. It's one thing to quietly have feelings for someone when nobody's watching. It's different when your entire friend group is low-key invested in whether you'll finally do something about it. The volume's pacing is deliberate. Early chapters focus on group activities, beach volleyball, swimming, the kind of slice-of-life moments that showcase personality and humor. But as the volume progresses, the focus narrows. More panels dedicated to Taiki and Chinatsu alone. More internal monologue showing they're both thinking about the same thing, but approaching it from different angles. Chinatsu wondering if Taiki sees her as more than a housemate. Taiki terrified that admitting his feelings will make living together unbearably awkward if she doesn't reciprocate. The classic romance trap where both people want the same thing, but fear keeps them silent. The announcement of the Blue Box prologue novel adds interesting context. Backstory for these characters, especially Chinatsu, could reframe how fans interpret her current behavior. If the novel reveals she's been carrying feelings for Taiki longer than readers assumed, it changes the entire dynamic, transforms her from someone gradually falling for him into someone who's been in love and trying to hide it because she doesn't know how he feels. That's a very different emotional journey. The beach moments between Taiki and Chinatsu are textbook visual storytelling. No words needed to communicate what's happening. The way they're drawn in proximity, close but not touching, framed in panels that emphasize the space between them shrinking with each scene. The artists using every tool to show rather than tell. Body language, eye lines, the tiny details like fingers almost brushing or someone leaning in slightly before pulling back. Fans dissecting these panels are picking up on intentional signals that this volume represents a turning point. The build-up to whatever confession or acknowledgement is coming isn't happening through dialogue. It's happening through accumulated tension across dozens of small, charged interactions. Chinatsu's perspective gets more focus in this volume, and that's crucial. Blue Box has mostly followed Taiki's internal experience. His anxieties, his feelings, his confusion about whether Chinatsu sees him as anything beyond a convenient living situation. Giving Chinatsu more interiority shows she's been wrestling with parallel doubts. She's hyper-aware of how living in his house complicates everything. Moving too fast or misreading signals could blow up her entire stable situation. But not saying anything means existing in this limbo where she's close to him but not in the way she wants. That dual fear of losing what they have versus never getting what they could have is the exact tension driving the entire romance forward. The supporting cast reactions function as audience surrogates. When Kyo or Karen watch Taiki and Chinatsu and exchange knowing glances, they're voicing what readers are thinking. Just get together already. But their own romantic subplots add complexity. Kyo carrying unrequited feelings means he's watching Taiki potentially get the happy ending he wants for himself. That's not jealousy that turns ugly, it's the melancholy of watching someone else have what you can't, and having to be supportive anyway because you care about both people involved. Karen and Ayame's dynamics suggest potential ships that fans are latching onto, creating a broader ecosystem of romance that keeps the series from feeling one note, even while Taiki and Chinatsu remain the emotional center. The thematic throughline of the beach arc is vulnerability. Competition and training let these characters hide behind goals and structure. The beach forces them into leisure, into moments where they can't distract themselves with practice or schoolwork. Vulnerability becomes unavoidable. Taiki can't deflect his feelings by focusing on becoming a better player. Chinatsu can't avoid her emotions by throwing herself into basketball. They're just two people who've been living together, growing closer, and finally running out of excuses to avoid addressing what's been building between them for 50 chapters. The slow burn payoff is what's driving fan engagement. Romance manga often rush toward confessions, treating them as finish lines. Blue Box understands that the confession is the beginning, not the end. The value isn't in whether they get together, everyone knows they will eventually. The value is in the journey, in watching two people navigate the terrifying process of admitting feelings when the stakes are this personal. Every chapter that brings them incrementally closer feels earned because the series has put in the groundwork to make readers care about both characters individually and together. The Blue Box prologue novel's announcement hints at depth that could recontextualize the entire series. If it reveals Chinatsu had feelings for Taiki before moving in, or shows earlier interactions that take on new meaning with hindsight, it enriches the current story by adding layers fans didn't know were there. Prequels work best when they reframe rather than just add. When knowing the backstory makes you want to reread everything with new understanding. If Volume 18 really is the turning point, if the next volume delivers the confession fans have been waiting for, then Blue Box will have executed one of the most patient, carefully built romances in recent sports manga, proving that slow burns work when every chapter adds meaningful development rather than just stalling for time. And that sometimes the most powerful moments aren't the grand declarations, but the quiet acknowledgements between two people who've been falling for each other so gradually, they almost didn't notice until suddenly, it was too late to pretend otherwise.